Passage 5. Listen to part of a discussion in an astronomy class. The professor is discussing stars. Constellations.
Today I want to talk to you about constellations, what they are and what their history is. I think you all know that they are patterns of stars, but I also want you to understand that constellations are also areas of the sky and everything which is located within that area. Those boundaries were established in the 1920s by a committee of astronomers. Star charts will show constellations, and depending upon the time the chart was made, constellations will be shown differently.
What do you mean by that?
Well, charts made before 1928, when the boundaries were established, show the star patterns in different ways. Some of the really old charts portray the patterns as fancy ladies in elegant clothes, or animals which may be parts of two animals, such as half a fish and half a goat. Later charts during the Renaissance time were very decorative and had beautiful drawings in the margins of the charts.
What are the charts like today?
Well, the charts usually just show lines connecting stars, kind of like a connect the dot game kids play. Most constellations are shown as simple patterns. They may be shown as crosses, squares, angles, and even bent lines. Not all charts show the patterns in the same way, and a few constellations actually look like what they are named after. For example, Orion and Scorpius do, but most patterns show no resemblance to the constellation's name.
Well, I don't think that was a particularly good reason for the way constellations were drawn.
Sure it is. If we do things today, they will be analyzed differently in 20 years.
Many constellations were probably named for symbolic reasons. For example, Ursa Major is also referred to as the Great Bear because it is similar to a hibernating bear's behavior. Here the position or location of the stars was more important than their appearance. Other examples can be given, but much of this information has been lost over the years because reasons were not written down. It might really be an interesting theme or topic for a term paper though. Think about it this way. Stars change location in the sky as the seasons change. And because there are 4 seasons, it will take a year for you to see what I mean. If you follow the location of Ursa Major throughout the year, you understand why it was named as a symbolic meaning for the bear's hibernation. Remember that all the constellations were invented. They were thought up by people.
But I thought you said they are star patterns in the sky.
They are, but they are imaginary. Some were thought up and named in modern times, but most were invented hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. Some were invented in prehistoric times. That is why it is so difficult to be able to give historic or even accurate facts about the history of constellations.
Well then, what is the importance of knowing or being able to identify constellations?
Because if you are able to identify patterns of stars and know the locations of many of the more than 80 constellations, then you can understand more about the sky and how it changes and what the significance of the changing sky has to star location. And because of the importance, let me explain to you a little about the history of constellations. I gave you the example earlier of the Great Bear. People think this may be the oldest constellation. People throughout the Northern Hemisphere see the Great Bear near the North Pole. It is thought that as early as Ice Age times, people thought the star's movements looked like a bear hibernating. The stars would disappear in the fall, when bears begin to go into hibernation, and then the stars would reappear in the spring, after hibernation was over. And as these people migrated and established new living areas, they carried their ideas with them. And therefore, the idea was spread throughout various parts of the world that this specific group of stars looked like a hibernating bear. As a result, the constellation became known as Ursa Major, a Great Bear.
So you're saying that all constellations were named in this way?
Wouldn't that have been difficult to do?
Yes, it would have been difficult, and not all constellations were named in the way the Great Bear was named. Others have been named because the relationship among the stars, about a third of the constellations have been named this way. For example, many constellations were invented by the Sumerians, ancient peoples who lived in what is modern-day Iraq. The Sumerians were systematic when they watched the stars. They divided the sky into some of the patterns that we recognize today. They charted the paths of the sun and planets among the stars and recorded their findings on clay tablets in cuneiform writing. Writing which you have learned about in your world history classes. Now, why do you think I mentioned the ancient Sumerians?
Why is that?
Well, probably because they were recording information which was used by later peoples and...
It also probably started the list of constellation names so others could add to it later.
Well, you are both right. And as a result, today we have more than 80 named constellations which can be identified by patterns and by location within the sky.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
Number 24. What is the discussion mainly about? Number 25. How does the professor emphasize his point about how constellations have been named? Number 26. What are two key features of star charts? Click on two answers. Number 27. According to the discussion, what are some reasons for not knowing the history of all constellations? Click on three answers.
Listen again to part of the discussion, then answer the question.
Star charts will show constellations, and depending upon the time the chart was made, constellations will be shown differently.
Number 28. What does the professor mean when he says this?
Constellations will be shown differently.
Listen again to part of the discussion, then answer the question.
Well, I don't think that was a particularly good reason for the way constellations were drawn.
Sure it is. If we do things today, they will be analyzed differently in 20 years.
Number 29. What can be inferred about the students?